Hi, this is Erica Walda, and today I will be recording a video regarding our care navigation assignment. The health interest that I chose to do some research on was diabetes. The three articles that I did review, the first one came from American Diabetes Association. It was a medical journal. The CDC's Diabetes, it was also a medical journal. And then the third actually came from the Mayo Clinic's website. And it was just more of an in general page regarding just diabetes as a whole. I will start with a description of the CDC's Diabetes Journal. The sources for that, there were three sources. The first one was from a 2002 medical journal. The second was from a 2010 medical journal, and the third was from a 2016 medical journal. A few of the authors that were listed was Greg E.W., Thompson T.J., and Fowler S.E. This CDC page specifically discusses more of prevention, lifestyle changes that you can make, increased factors that may help you develop diabetes, such as being overweight, things of that nature. It really goes through and actually describes like what diabetes is. There are other risks that you are increased to, such as like heart attack and stroke, if you do develop diabetes and prediabetes. With this, a thing that I found really helpful with this specific page was that there was a lifestyle change program. It linked where you could locate in your area different programs that may be available, but if there wasn't anything available, I also really enjoyed that it had a curriculum listed with it. So that way, if you don't have a similar program in your area, it also gives you those steps and those ideas on what you can do to follow to help make some of those lifestyle changes to hopefully either reduce your risk of prediabetes, or if you have type 2 diabetes, help lower your risk of other future serious health risks that you may run with having type 2 diabetes. With this page, I feel like the thing that I felt like that wasn't as most helpful was it only discusses prediabetes and type 2 diabetes on the CDC page. If you were coming to this page to research diabetes as a whole, it lacks that information regarding type 1. Maybe you're going here to just look up symptoms because maybe you're having a few health symptoms and you may think that it could be prediabetes. There are some symptoms that you could present that with type 1s that type 2 may not have. So I feel like with the CDC's website, it didn't give a full general picture on diabetes as a whole, but overall, I do feel like it was very helpful. Next up, I will discuss the American Diabetes Association journal. It really talks about diagnoses, just generally in with diabetes. The page discusses some statistics. For example, it does state that 1.4 million people are newly diagnosed with diabetes each year. It talks about your feelings when you're newly diagnosed, feelings that you can have when you've been diagnosed your entire life. It does discuss type 1, type 2, and prediabetes. Talks about medications, living with diabetes. There's even tips with how to eat healthier, how to stay active. And there's also resources for like fitness ideas with people who have diabetes, low impact nutrition, such as like specific recipes, things like that. I feel like the most helpful with this one is I really liked that it talks about emotions and how it can be really overwhelming to be newly diagnosed. And that really goes for anything. The mental health that goes along with lots of chronic illnesses, super important to make sure those are discussed and make sure you have resources for that. It can be extremely overwhelming. I do love how it has, the lower carb recipes, things of that nature, and how to incorporate it into your everyday life to make sure that you do have better tips and resources when you are newly diagnosed and how to make those smaller lifestyle changes. For this, something I found that wasn't extremely helpful, however, I felt like it was helpful. The one thing that wasn't listed in this specific journal were associated health risks such as like blindness, heart attack, stroke, again, that stuff was not listed here. There was a link down below that I did find that I was able to navigate towards an article that had that type of information, but I don't feel like it was listed and expressed super conveniently. I feel like if you are newly diagnosed, your primary care physician should tell you about those risks. But if you're coming to this website after being diagnosed and you weren't explained those risks, it wouldn't be something that maybe you would read that's currently available on this specific journal. Lastly, I will discuss the Mayo Clinic's journal on diabetes. The sources from this says that it was recently updated in March of 2024. Again, no authors, anything of that nature. But the page itself does discuss symptoms and causes, diagnosis and treatments, care where you can receive at the Mayo Clinic. Specific doctors talks about an overview of diabetes, how your body uses glucose or sugar for your cells. It does discuss type 1, type 2, and prediabetes, when to see a doctor if you have specific symptoms, as well as how insulin works and other risk factor complications. The biggest thing that I felt was extremely helpful was when to seek care from a doctor if you feel like you have symptoms. That's huge. Lots of people can, go on and be undiagnosed. However, if you have certain symptoms, right, such as you have the urgency to urinate very frequently, that is a big sign that you should seek care from your physician or a physician to possibly take a look and see about getting diagnosed with diabetes and if you need additional care. I think that the biggest thing for me that I felt like wasn't super helpful, the page itself was really helpful. But I think the biggest thing for me was that there weren't suggestions for lifestyle changes, how to stay and, continue being active. There wasn't recipe suggestions or things that maybe a diabetic would eat, where the other pages did have that. So overall, I feel like the Mayo Clinic's page had the most beneficial overall information. However, the other two articles did have less of what the Mayo Clinic, but they did have different recipes and things of that nature. So I think depending on if what you're looking for and what you're wanting to know about the new diagnosis or just the health concern, all three of these articles were super beneficial in my opinion.